I went to the Weather Service. It was the end of the season for me, and I was going to go thank everybody there and say thank you for letting me come in and use all your data and run out here like a fireman after storms. And I remember I was sitting watching back then the AFOS machines is what they called them, the machines that had all the data. And a forecaster from Topeka sent a special message to Amarillo that said, "You guys are sitting on a keg of dynamite." And I remember the forecaster read this, and I'm like heading out. I'm like, "Can you repeat that? What are we sitting on?" He goes, "The forecaster in Topeka is looking over things, and he sees a little tiny jet streak in the satellite loop, and he says, if this thing goes, you guys are sitting on a." I'm like, "Well, maybe I will stay in."
The dry line had backed up well into the Panhandle, about to the Amarillo area, and we had a really juicy air mass out ahead of it. We had dew points well up in the mid to upper 60s, and we had sunny skies. The only really concerning factor was a strong cap. We had a really strong cap that day, but I knew that if something kind of busted the cap, that we'd have a good day.
I went to the map room and, see what's going on. It was going to be a day there was going to be a storm chaser picnic. I didn't know a lot of details about that. So I wanted to go up there and find out, like where it was and just look at the weather like I did every day, see how things were going. I knew there was like maybe a potential, some storms possibly. And John Finch kind of said he thought that the day was better than many were thinking. And, he didn't promise anything or anything, but he was a very good forecaster. So we kind of all got together and kind of decided, well, we'll go for this instead of going to the storm chaser party.
I was out at my friend's house, and I was kind of bummed because this cap was so strong, it was actually keeping the sky completely clear. We weren't getting any bubbles, little cumulus or anything anywhere. And so I was out between Amarillo and Canyon at my friend's house, and I was just bummed out, just totally bummed out. So I decided to go out to my truck and get something to drink, and I just happened to look to the northeast, and I just saw what looked like an atom bomb going off way to the northeast. And I was thinking, that's going to be up there around Pampa somewhere. And it was two big updrafts side by side that just kind of went up, and then they just exploded. You could tell they had busted the cap. So I went running back in. I said, "I gotta go." And I was out the door before they could even say anything, and I'm on the road.
Up goes that one cell, just, the dream of every chaser. The isolated kind of a classic morph LP, perfect supercell that could be seen for hundreds and hundreds of miles. There were people driving up from Midland that could see that storm.
And as we got closer and closer to the storm, it just seemed to be getting better and better. You could see the rising updrafts, like the little surges that it does, like at times you'll see a big parcel of going up, and the anvil was real sharp. The convection looked like it was like really strong, really hard looking, like firm.
So I'm busting up Highway 60. I hit Pampa, then turn north on Highway 70 out of Pampa. And I mean, it's just, you could just feel it in the air. It just felt like East Texas humidity, Oklahoma City humidity. The storm had already anviled out well before I even got to Pampa. And it really, from my vantage point, looked LP. Even though the radar representation was saying classic, from the ground representation, it was looking LP. And I'm like, all right. And it's not moving. Gentleman's chase, here we go. So I get up there close to the storm. I find the cutoff road. I can't remember the exact farm to market road, but it's one that takes you northeast from Highway 70, kind of towards Miami.
And it kept forming perfect wall clouds for an LP that just looked like it was going to drop a tornado. And it didn't. At least we didn't see one. And then right toward the end of its life cycle, it just formed that perfect wall cloud and dropped that skinny little tornado.
I'm watching this thing and watching it, and it's got the classic comma shape to it, the rear, the flanking line going into the main part of the mezzo. I noticed the rotation's just getting a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. So I get on the phone and I call one of the Mets at one of the local TV stations, and I'm talking to him about it. And I look back over and I see the first dust whirl kicking up, and I'm like, "Hey, tornado in progress. We've got the first debris cloud." At about that time, I get clocked in the head by a quarter-size hailstone.
All of a sudden, we noticed there was like stirring up of dust on the ground.
We don't want to lose sight of that at all. Hey, is that a cone coming down?
Possible, yeah. Look,
I think that's a cone starting to drop.
you think this is a good place, John? It's good for now.
Yeah,
Now we can see still dust. There's dust on the ground.
there's dust on the
And
ground.
as time went on, the dust cloud became more obvious. It was definitely a tornado from on the surface, and the funnel started to extend itself downward slowly.
Definite tornado.
Tornado.
It's on the ground.
All right.
And I shot it first from a distance, so it was a wide shot. You can see the wall cloud and the tornado, which was a great shot by itself. And I was being hit by hailstones, and I remember getting so mad, not at the hail hitting me, but they were streaking through the film, ruining the shot. That was my concern. I didn't care that those golf balls were bouncing off my head. I'm like, it's going to ruin my shot. They're going through the film.
So it started out as a separated debris cloud, and then the cone just started to get bigger and bigger. And it was one of those classic high plains tornadoes where you don't have a condensation funnel all the way down for at least half of the tornado lifespan, but a beautiful debris cloud and dirt tube.
Storm looks like it's moving either due south or maybe southwest.
And then we started to get a little more hail, a little bit more rain, and I finally had to move. I was bummed. I moved about 2 miles south. But by that time, the tornado was just ripping across the countryside at a very slow pace, but highly visible, good contrast, over open country, which you always want to see.
And John Fence had the only video camera, and it wasn't really, nothing really fancy. He started taking the video at first, and then we kind of like got to the point, well, okay, it's lasting long enough, after we wanted to get each of us in the video. I tended to be more shy and didn't really get in the video that much. I tried to figure people wanted to see a tornado rather than me. Casey, I think, got the most amount of time on video.
Okay, stop right there. Yeah, right there.
Then I drove south and then drove back west and was able to get the classic funnel, the classic tornado that was used in Twister.
It's roping. It's doing one of those pictures like in the Weather Channel calendar. Look at that.
Yeah.
John, look at that.
It's got good video no matter what. Oh, look at that little sucker go. It's roping out. Yeah.
Warner Brothers contacted me. They wanted somebody to be a consultant. And the problem I had was the consulting they wanted. At first it was art. Like, we want to put a weather map on the wall or a picture. Something was real minor stuff. And then they wanted somebody to work on the set as safety. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that because I'll miss chasing. Twister movie chasing. Twister movie chasing. Easy decision, chasing. And that was, of course, they filmed it, I think it was April. So I didn't want to be out chasing. I don't care what kind of movie it was. I didn't want to. So I recommended one of the guys from the Weather Channel. They went with him for set safety for weather. They never actually hired a consultant because they had such a death grip on that script. They didn't want to monkey with it, which, of course, the ice chip, hailstones, and some other crazy stuff. They probably could have used a consultant for that. The great thing about working with Twister initially is they knew I was a storm photographer, and they came to me and said, hey, do you have a shot that would work for the art? And I'm like, yeah, here's a whole selection. And they chose that one. And I remember the phone call. I remember what they offered to pay me. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is, the biggest sell I've ever had, the biggest publicity, and the biggest bragging rights in history. And it was absolutely wonderful.
No, that was the big event for our area in '94. It was just a classic late May day where you get the slow moving storms.
That is my type of storm. I live out further west. I love those isolated dry line storms. I miss a lot of storms And I've missed a lot of storms over 30 years plus doing this because I'm about the isolated, photogenic supercell, isolated supercell classic LP out west. That's just my thing. I don't like getting into the soupy HPs, the ones that are difficult to chase. I don't like that. I'm spoiled as a photographer. So a lot of stuff I won't chase. I've missed a ton of stuff because that's what I like. But yeah, that day was absolutely nuts. It's one of those days, I remember Jim Leonard used to say that you just don't expect anything. Your mind is not on, I'm ever going to see a tornado today. And there you go.